Oh, I would be on the new set for the Entertainment Guy, but it's not 100% done yet. So until it's 100% done, I'm going to film in here. Um, so Friday the 13th, a franchise that I've loved since I was a teenager, and I've got numerous t-shirts that are just absolutely amazing to do with Jason. And I'm not sure how these t-shirts exist because the rights to make a new movie have been stuck in legal crap for years. And if either party see this, stop it. Just come to some kind of agreement. The longer these guys take to come to an agreement on how to figure out who owns the rights to Jason Voorhees and the script and all this wonderful stuff, the longer we take to decide who owns Jason, the less of a point there is in making a new Friday the 13th movie. Now, I am one of the few that really thought the remake was well done because the originals are awful. They're unapologetically awful, and they know that they're awful. And I've said this before, but if you ever get to see the 6-hour documentary on the behind the scenes of all of the Friday the 13th movies, man, is it great viewing. I watched all 6 hours in like a 2-day period, and it was fan-flipping-tastic when I watched it. And then I watched Never Sleep Again, which is the same sort of documentary about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And it starts out with everybody going, this was a great movie. This Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty good. This was fine. To by the time you get to Freddy's Dead, it's, well, it wasn't my fault. He's the one that did it. Not my fault. He wrote the script. Did you see that crappy makeup? That was their fault. It seems to devolve into these movies turn to garbage and we don't want to take responsibility. Or sometimes with horror movies, they'll try to blame the audience. Like, we didn't get it. It's not Citizen Kane. There's not much not to get. And Friday the 13th never, ever, ever claimed to be. And I guess that's the big difference is that Elm Street, the first Elm Street movie is fantastic. The first Friday the 13th is not. It really isn't. It isn't my favorite Friday the 13th movie. The one from 1980, it's not. The second one is a little bit better, in my opinion, even though I know that's sacrilege to some. 3 is kind of campy fantastic because of the 3D effects and Chris's amazing monologue. And then you've got part 4, which is kind of classic, and it kind of combines everything all into one. And it sums up all the kills at the beginning of part 4, which is nice. It's nice of them to do that if you don't have the patience to watch parts 1 through 3. Here you go, everybody died. Let's start part 4. And then 5's not Jason, Roy. 6, Jason comes back to life because Tommy's an idiot. And that's fine. And I remember at the start of part 6, you know, and I knew the premise going in and Tommy's bringing him back to life. He's so stupid. Why is Tommy stupid? He was the only person smart enough to kill Jason, and now he's an idiot. Oh, idiot Tommy. And then you have part 7, which is Jason versus Carrie. Part 8, which is absolutely ridiculous. New York, it's Vancouver. And it devolves from there. So coming back to where we are right now, they're fighting over this property, and I'm not sure what the end game is here, because if the end game is to try to make more movies and try to make more money off of the script, the character, whoever owns what, that money's kind of going out the window. The last Friday the 13th movie being in 2009, and being relatively well received among Friday the 13th fans. Not so much among critics, but Friday the 13th movies were always absolutely abysmal with critics because they're bad movies. So to see people squabbling over who gets to make the next bad movie is weird. Who owns the rights to make money off the next bad movie is weird. The Friday the 13th movie, when it came out, I think it was like 40 million that first weekend, right? The Friday the 13th remake. And then the second weekend, I think it dropped to like 4. I know it dropped big time because it's a Friday the 13th movie, and people went in. I don't know what they were expecting, but everybody's like, "Oh, I don't like that. There wasn't much of a plot to that at all." Well, yeah, it's a Friday the 13th. The only fail to me is the way Jason looked. Jason looked just terrible. You see him without the mask for like 5 seconds, and it's 5 seconds too long. But I thought there were a lot of really interesting things they did in that movie, and I was hoping for some kind of sequel to that I thought would have been fun. You could have Jared Padalecki in a bunch of those movies. The problem is then you expect Dean to show up because it is Sam from Supernatural, And now that Supernatural's ending, maybe you can make a movie with them in it. Sam and Dean meet Jason Voorhees. You could have a really good movie out of that, but they're all litigating in court. And, you know, it's got to end because we need more Friday the 13th movies. I'm tired of the jump scare PG-13 movies that all the teeny boppers get to go and see because they're really bad. I've watched a bunch of them, and I've watched enough of them to know that they have a formula as well. One of the biggest regrets I had, and this was when I was, I don't know, 20, 21. I know, well, no, about 22 was when when I first got an apartment all by myself. I didn't have roommates anymore. I had an apartment of my own. I thought, all right, I've got a holiday coming up. So what did I do? I rented all the Friday the 13th movies from parts 1 through 8. This was when we used to have video stores that you rented movies from. So I rented all 8, and I thought, okay, I'm going to keep track of false scares, what we call jump scares now. So false scares where blah and nothing happens. And then I'm going to keep track of when the killing starts, who's killed in what order, and I'm going to time it all out. And we're going to figure out, you know, how formulaic are these movies. By part 8, I felt kind of icky. And, I mean, I only watched 1 or 2 a day, but I felt bad enough by the time I got to part 8 that I just wanted it to be over. And I found out that they follow an extremely similar formula almost down to the minute, where they knew when the kills had to start, they knew how many there had to be, they knew how many false scares to throw at the start. It all follows a formula. So we're not, again, it's not Citizen Kane, it's not even Gremlins, it's Friday the 13th. And for an old horror movie buff like myself, and now they're old horror movies, right? I'm not talking like, you know, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein movies. But I mean, for me, and I always wanted to see Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. Didn't happen. Freddy versus Jason versus Pinhead. Didn't happen. Freddy versus Michael versus Jason. Didn't happen. There's a lot of these really fun little ideas that you could have out there to bring these guys into the same universe, and it just didn't happen. I know when I saw Jason Goes to Hell, and he's using the Necronomicon, I'm like, holy crap! You could get Ash in here because that's the Necronomicon, and it just didn't happen. So they tried to sort of branch it out and try to explain the Jason mythology, making him a demon, and people immediately went, he's not a slug. That's stupid. Let's put him in space so people can forget he was a slug. I don't know. I don't know how Jason ended up in space. All I know is it's fun, and that probably follows the exact same formula, just in space. So yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. There's been 13 movies. I'm not sure how much of an argument there is to be had. I know there was a rumor that there was going to be a new movie that was set in a snowy environment so that it was in winter. The problem with that is you can't have girls running around in bikinis and going skinny dipping. So I don't know that would get studio support, because that's your audience right there, is the teenage boy audience. And if they're in the snow, well, snow movies, you gotta get Nazi zombies in there, or what's the point? And if you haven't seen Dead Snow, I highly recommend that one too. Only once though. It's not a movie that I can watch more than once, but man, that movie once, that was a fun movie. Smarter than you'd think too for a movie about Nazi zombies. But this is Friday the 13th, and make more. Stop fighting about it in court. Just settle it down, and apparently there's going to be a phone mediation in May. So a couple weeks time, or about almost a month's time, there's going to be a mediation. So mediate this. Let me sit between them, and I'll figure it out. So every time I'm like, well, I want the rights to, I can go, it's Jason Voorhees. It's not a big deal. Oh, the script? Yeah, it's a Friday the 13th script. Do we have to sit all 8 scripts down and see how similar they are? I don't think so. So there you go. Hopefully this comes to an end. So if you've always wondered, why did they stop making Friday the 13th movies? It's not because they weren't any good. It's, because there's a bunch of crap caught up in court about who owns the right to make the next movie. They don't cost very much money, and they make a boatload for what they cost. So they're very profitable compared to what they cost. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.